There is a sentence missing from the contract you signed with your developer, and that missing sentence decides who legally owns your product, not you in spirit, owns. I have spent 7 years reading these agreements after things went wrong, and most of them are missing the same 5 lines. Today, I'm going to give you all 5 in plain English, ready to hand to your lawyer. And the first one is the one that shocks owners the most. Quick check that you're in the right place. You own a business, you pay a developer, a freelancer, or an agency to build your software. You sign the contracts, you write the checks, but you do not read the code, and you should not have to. This video is for you. Now, I have talked before about physically holding the keys to your own product, the accounts, the passwords, the access. Go watch that one too. But here's what nobody tells you. Holding a key means nothing if a piece of paper says the key is not yours. Possession is the practical layer. The contract is the enforcement layer. When a relationship blows up, possession gets you through the week. Paper decides who wins the year. So pull up the contract you already signed or the one sitting unsigned in your inbox, because we are about to check it for 5 lines, starting with ownership. Line 1. Ownership transfers when you pay, not when the project ends. Here's what most owners believe. I paid for it, so I own it. Ask any tech lawyer and they will tell you the default in most countries is the opposite. The person who writes the code owns it, not the person who pays for it. Ownership only moves if the contract moves it in writing. That is called IP assignment. IP just means the legal ownership of the code, the designs, everything they create for you. The trap version is a clause that assigns ownership upon full and final payment. Sounds fine, but it's not. It means if you ever dispute one invoice, even the last 5% of a 2-year project, they legally hold everything you already paid for. Your own product becomes their leverage. The fix is one sentence. Ownership of each deliverable transfers to you when you pay for that deliverable. Paid for month 1, you own month 1. Every payment locks in what you've already bought. Simple, and it leads straight into the next problem, owning something you cannot reach. Line 2. A handover clause with a deadline. What it is, a line that says, on request or at the end of the contract, they must hand over the source code the raw files of your product is actually built from, plus the credentials, meaning every login and password, and the documentation, all in a form a new developer can actually use within a fixed number of days. The trap version is silence. Most contracts simply never mention handover. So when you part ways, handover becomes a favor, and favors from someone you just fired arrive slowly, expensively, or not at all. The invoice for offboarding writes itself, and you have no line to point at. The fix: everything delivered within 10 business days of a written request in usable form, with reasonable transition help, and it's included in the fees you already pay. Not a new line item, not a ransom, but a handover clause has one weakness, and that weakness is line 3. Line 3. A copy of everything held in escrow. Escrow just means a neutral third party holds a sealed copy of your source code and credentials and releases it to you if certain triggers fire. What triggers? They go bankrupt. They stop responding for 30 days. They breach the contract. Now, here's the trap. Your handover clause only works if someone is standing on the other end to comply with it. Agencies fold. Freelancers vanish. You cannot negotiate with a business that no longer exists. I have watched an owner hold a perfectly enforceable contract against a company with no working phone number. The paper was flawless. there was nobody left to sue. The fix? The provider deposits code and credentials with a software escrow service and refreshes the copy quarterly with the release triggers written into the contract. For a small project, this can be as simple as a shared updated copy in an account you control. The principle is identical. Your product should survive their bad year. Line 4, response times in numbers, not adjectives. Somewhere in your contract, there is probably an SLA that is not just the contract line that says how fast they respond when something breaks. Go read yours. If it says commercially reasonable efforts or best efforts, you have an adjective, not an agreement. Reasonable to a developer on holiday is very different from reasonable to you at 9 a.m. with a dead website and a full inbox. The trap version sounds professional and commits to nothing. That is exactly why it is popular. The fix is numbers. Site down, response within 2 hours. Around the clock. Critical bug, the next day. And this is the part everyone skips. A stated consequence when they miss it, usually a credit off your next invoice. A response time without a consequence is a suggestion, which brings us to the line providers push back on hardest. Line 5. An exit either side can actually use. What is it? A clause that says either party can walk away with 30 days written notice. You pay only for work completed to date, and the handover clause from line 2 triggers automatically. The trap versions are everywhere. Contracts that auto-renew for a full year unless you cancel inside a narrow window. Termination allowed only 4 cores, meaning you must prove a breach, which means lawyers, exit fees, or, my personal favorite, exit allowed but handover to be agreed at the time, which means priced at the time. The fix costs you nothing to ask for. 30 days notice, either side, no fee, pay for the work done, handover automatic and included. And if a provider resists this one line, pay close attention. Confident providers do not need hostages. Now, if that all sounds theoretical, let me show you what the missing lines cost in the real world. This is not a new problem. In 1990, a US federal appeals court decided a case called FX Associates versus Cohen. A film producer agreed to pay roughly $64,000 for special effects footage, actually handed over only about 56, and never signed anything about who owned the copyright. The court ruled the producer had bought a license to use the footage, but the effects company kept the copyright, free to sell that exact same footage to anyone else. He paid for it, he did not own it. The written opinion contains one of the most quoted lines in copyright law. Movie makers do lunch, not contracts. That rule has not changed in 35 years. Paying is not owning. Only paper transfers ownership. And when the ownership paper is ambiguous, the bill does not get smaller, it gets catastrophic. Mattel and MGA Entertainment spent the better part of a decade in court, from 2004 to the decisive verdict in 2011, with appeals running on after, fighting over the Bratz doll line. And huge stretches of that fight turned on what one designer's agreement actually covered. The combined legal costs ran into the hundreds of millions. That is what a single ambiguous ownership clause can fund. 10 years of lawyers. You will probably never see a courtroom. Here's what you will see instead. The quiet version. A fallout, a locked account, a handover bill you have no contractual right to dispute. Then a rebuild from scratch, which is where the rework multiplier, that 10 to 50x curve, quietly eats every dollar you saved by not reading page 6. So, here is the artifact. Screenshot this or just listen. It is 5 sentences you send your lawyer before you sign anything. Your own words are fine, the meaning is what matters. 1. Ownership transfers on each payment. Everything I have paid for is mine deliverable by deliverable, not held until the final invoice clears. 2. Handover on request within 10 business days, included in the fee, source code, credentials, documentation in usable form. 3. A copy of everything in escrow, refreshed quarterly, released to me if they fold, breach, or go silent for 30 days. 4. Response times as numbers, with a stated remedy when missed. No reasonable efforts anywhere in the document. 5. Exit for either side on 30 days notice. Pay for work done. No exit fee. Handover triggers automatically. Then add one closing line to your lawyer. Please make sure these 5 survive the red lines. Red lines are just the edits the other side's lawyer sends back. And I promise you those edits will quietly concentrate on exactly these 5 clauses. That concentration tells you everything. 2 last things. If you're vetting a new agency right now, run this checklist alongside the 3 conversation agency test before anything gets signed. And if you are mid-contract today, you are not stuck. Amendments exist. Send the 5 lines and ask. A provider who refuses a fair amendment has just told you precisely what the original contract was for. Your lawyer handles the wording. Your only job is to make sure these 5 lines exist. Everything I just drew is free. Screenshot it. If you want to know where your company is exposed, the 3-minute scorecard is in the description. It'll tell you your 2 biggest risks and how to fix them yourself. Thanks for watching. That's the end of the video. So please like and subscribe and comment. It really helps the algorithm, and I'm excited to bring you more content. And as you can see, I'm branching out from just doing AI to other forms of content as well, especially to help business owners that are working with IT contractors. Thank you.